Back at you again with another topic I know a lot of you want to hear. A lot of you are dealing with this issue, and I'm excited to share it with you because I have a lot of experience dealing with this issue myself. Let's get started. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience coughing up blood, what to do if you cough up blood, and some tips, and what to do in the event you have an episode of coughing up blood, and maybe even how to prevent it from happening in the future. If you're watching this video, you're probably somebody who's coughed up blood in the past, who's coughing up blood currently, or a parent of a child with cystic fibrosis who's coughing up blood, or maybe even a friend or family member of somebody you know who's been coughing up blood, or who's coughed up blood in the past. Or, in fact, you may just be somebody who saw the title of this video and it sounded really interesting, and that's okay too. So first, warning. I'm going to have graphic images in this video, and I'll try to give you a heads up every time I'm going to put something on the screen. So if blood bothers you, or if you get queasy or faint or lightheaded, then this may not be the video for you. Let's go ahead and proceed. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is just my experience coughing up blood and the tips and tricks and things that I've heard from medical professionals that I may be repeating, or just things that I've compiled from my time spent coughing up blood in all the years that I've had to go through this and the things I've learned. First, why does hemoptysis, which is the medical term for coughing up blood, why does hemoptysis happen? The first reason is a traumatic experience. For instance, being bucked off a horse, getting in a car accident, something like this that causes lung bleeding. The second, which is the one I'm going to be talking about today, and probably the most common, is due to infection, inflammation, and irritation. I'm 28 years old now, and the first time I coughed up blood was probably around age 15. So that really gives me about 12 years of experience that I'm able to share with you, and hopefully this can give you some information to prevent an episode from occurring in the future. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. So my most recent experience coughing up blood, I was at the gym with my friend Robbie, and I was doing some tricep pushdowns, and you kind of sit in this seat, and there's a couple bars that kind of extend out, and they have handles. So you put your arms on the handles, and you push down. Well, not a big deal. All of you should exercise if you have cystic fibrosis like I do. The problem is that I was ego lifting, and if you're not in the gym scene or the industry, then what that means is I was lifting as much as I possibly could. There's people around, I'm getting a big head, and I'm pushing the heaviest weight I could possibly handle. We finished our 3 or 4 sets. When you're beginning to cough up blood and you've done it a lot, then you really know what it feels like. It's when you exhale, you get this kind of gurgly feel. The noise that is produced whenever you put a straw in milk and you blow bubbles, you kind of have that gurgly, bubbly, like milky texture sound. And when you exhale, you know what that feels like. And so we're walking across the gym. Robbie's about 3 feet in front of me. I'm following because he's been to this gym and I haven't. Not that I don't go to the gym. This just happens to be a new gym that's part of the chain. And so we typically go to a different gym. In this case, we were trying out a new gym, and he had been there, I think, the day prior to that. I'm following Robbie, and I can tell it starts. And so I cough up blood, and blood speckles on my hand. So that confirms it for me. There's a lot of emotions that happen in that moment, and those of you who've coughed up blood can relate to this. You're thinking about where you are, who's around you, where can you go that is going to cause the least amount of panic, give you the most privacy, and that you can cough up blood safely without making a huge mess. Another thing I need to talk about is whenever somebody coughs up blood, it's not like the movies. You don't just cough up a little blood onto your hand and then that's that. No, a vessel has broken. Blood is now leaking out, and you can't apply pressure as you typically would to the wound because it's inside your body. I decide to go to the bathroom. There's about 5 sinks in this bathroom at the gym, and I pick one that's in the corner, and it's kind of a busy bathroom. There's at least, I would say, 100 to 200 people at this gym, and so I pick the sink that's kind of in the corner, and so I kind of turn and position my body to where if anyone were to walk in, they would be behind me. And so we got the counter here, wall with mirrors here, and then we have another wall right here. And so I'm kind of able to, it's obvious that I'm coughing, but it's not obvious because of my body position that I'm coughing blood. And so I'm just running the sink water, and I'm doing my best to, every time I exhale, I cough that blood and spit it out into this kind of running water. So it's just washing down into the sink. And I want to talk about Robbie's reaction, because this is something else that's important as well. I've been in other situations and had other experiences where the people around me just panicked. They just lost it. It's the scariest thing in the world to see, and understandably so. Robbie killed it. He stayed calm. He asked if I needed anything. He didn't panic. Like, he didn't say, like, oh, should I call 911? He didn't do any of that. He handled it perfectly. And guys, some of that is related to the way that I conducted myself. I didn't panic. Whenever I knew that I was beginning an episode of coughing blood, then I stayed calm as well. He obviously saw that I had coughed blood onto my hand, and he saw the blood, and he kind of said, oh, you okay? And I stayed calm. I said, yeah, I'll be all right. I'm just going to go to the bathroom. He kind of followed me in just to make sure like things were going okay. It's not the worst episode that I've had by any means. And so before I get into any more detail, that's kind of the story. If you're in public, it's really important to handle this correctly, because coughing up blood can instill a ton of panic, an enormous amount of panic among the people around you and the public, and it can draw a lot of eyes, and that added pressure whenever people surround you in a situation can really have a poor effect for the episode of hemoptysis. As I was preparing the information for this video, I began to write down all the tips and advice that I had. After I wrote all those down, I decided to count and see how many I had. Well, it ended up being 10, so I'm like, well shoot, now I could make this video be 10 tips to help you when you cough up blood, or something like that. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. My channel's not so much about that. So I went ahead and kept the title that I had originally planned. So let's get started. Tip number 1, stay calm. It's so important to stay calm. And there's actually a medical reason why. Because whenever you get worked up and whenever you start to panic, you have what's called a vagal response. What that means is that your blood pressure drops, your heart rate goes through the roof, it speeds up, and the combination of those two things is really just not a good outcome for hemoptysis. So you don't want your heart rate, the organ that's pumping your blood into your vascular system, into this broken vessel inside your lungs. You don't want that rate to increase. You don't want that organ to pump more blood and leak it out into your lungs. So stay calm, keep your heart rate low. Tip number 2, tell somebody. The reason you want to tell somebody is not to cause somebody else panic or additional emotion or to frighten them. You want to tell somebody because you don't know how long this episode of coughing blood is going to last. I've been in situations where I was pretty scared, and it went on for 25 to 30 minutes, and I lost a lot of blood. And in that case, I did need somebody else there to be able to call 911 to make sure I didn't collapse, to help me, to stabilize me, basically to assist me to make sure nothing goes wrong. So tell somebody. Tip number 3, as soon as it starts, you look at the clock, check the time, see what time it is. This is important because if your physician's like mine, the way that he measures or in my case, my physician's a male, the way that he measures is by minutes coughing up blood. That really gives him a good idea of how severe this issue could be. So remember to check the start time and the end time because your physician's probably going to want to know that. Tip number 4, measure. And I say measure lightly because like in the situation at the gym, I wasn't able to measure. I didn't have a basin that I could cough into. I wasn't in my kitchen sink. I didn't have a way to be able to tell, yeah, this looks like about half a cup. This looks like about 2 tablespoons. This looks like a whole sink full of blood. If you can measure, that's going to be a big help to your doctor. Tip number 5, don't exercise for 24 hours from the end of the episode. So if you coughed up blood at 2:30, don't exercise until 2:30 the next day. Again, there's a medical reason behind this as well. Whenever you're exercising, the rate of your lungs inhaling and exhaling increases, and really what that means is that you're moving this wound. You're moving the clot that had formed and prevented this vessel from leaking out into your lungs even more. Don't exercise, take it easy, don't do strenuous things, don't hold your breath and push because that increases the internal pressure of your vessels, and that in itself has caused me to cough up blood again or to restart the episode. Tip number 6, cough gently. If you're like me and have cystic fibrosis, then you cough all the time. The problem is your coughing is irritating a scab, a clot on a vessel that you've made, and that irritation and force and physical movement of that area can be enough to break that seal, to break that scab, release that clot from that spot, and then restart an episode of coughing blood. So cough gently. Number 7, and this isn't one that I've heard from other people or a physician or a nurse. This is one that my experience helped me realize. If you're a side sleeper, don't lay on the side where you've coughed up blood. So if, in my case, this bleeding that occurred a couple weeks ago was on my right side, and if you've coughed up blood and you're watching this, you know, you can tell which side it's coming from. Don't lay on the side you've coughed up blood. Whenever you're laying on your side, you're basically turning your body into the position where gravity allows more blood flow and pressure on the lowest side of your body. So if this is the side I'm going to lay on, then blood from this side of the body goes with gravity and increases the pressure in the vessels on this side of the body. So lay on the other side. Tip number 8, avoid blood thinners. And some of you may not know, but ibuprofen is considered a blood thinner, as well as an anti-inflammatory, painkiller, fever reducer. It thins your blood. You don't want thin blood if you're trying to form a clot to stop this bleeding. So switch the ibuprofen over to Tylenol. Don't take any prescription blood thinners, and monitor your use. And if you really rely on ibuprofen like I do, then you need to give it some time from that episode, and I mean a full day. And the longer you go, the better. So don't use those blood thinners. Number 9, stop the caffeine. You're probably thinking, what does caffeine have anything to do with this issue? Well, caffeine is a problem for a couple different reasons. Caffeine, for one, increases your heart rate. And as I talked about in an earlier point, that if the organ that's pumping blood into the vessel that's broken is increased, then that becomes an issue. The second problem with having a high caffeine intake is that it constricts your blood vessels. Now imagine you have this certain volume of blood. Imagine this blood is in this vessel, and now because the caffeine is causing your vessels to restrict, that does not decrease the volume of blood. You still have the same volume of blood, and now the vessel that this blood is sitting in is squeezing, so you have this tightness, but the volume of blood inside the vessel is still the same. Well, that's a problem because it causes a higher propensity for these vessels to break, to rupture. Number 10, and the last point, tell your physician. That's probably a given. I may not even have needed to put it in the points, but I didn't want to leave it out because obviously if you're coughing up blood and you don't tell your physician that I haven't done my job. They may want to have you come into the hospital. They may choose to tell you otherwise. Now, I want to wrap this up, and some of you may disagree with this, and if you're somebody who hasn't coughed up blood, say a parent, a family member, you may disagree. You don't necessarily have to go to the emergency room. And you're thinking, what are you talking about? Coughing up blood is major. Well, it is and it isn't. In my experience, and I've had a lot of experience, going to the emergency room isn't really going to help. They don't do anything. There's no one there that's going to hold pressure on this vessel that's broken. There's not something that they give you that immediately fixes this. Guys, what they have to do is treat you with antibiotics, and if that's something that you can avoid the emergency room for, then that may be the best solution for you. Now, if you're somebody who's been coughing up blood and you're kind of already on that border where you need to wear oxygen sometimes anyway, you may lean towards going to the emergency room just because you're already kind of in a vulnerable place medically, that may be the best option for you. Now, again, that's not medical advice. That's just my experience. I've had to waste kind of a lot of time going to the emergency room, going in with coughing up blood. They would have done the same thing that I could have done at my house, and that's just take an antibiotic, take it easy, don't exercise, don't break the clot that formed after your episode of coughing blood. Alright guys, at the end of the day, do what your physician tells you to do, and remember the 10 tips that I've given you in this video. And maybe next time you'll be more prepared for the next time this happens to you. If you have more tips, leave them in the comments section. Tell us something your physician has told you or another medical professional that's helped you get through these episodes. Let me know what your own experience is and the things that you've found without somebody telling you that work for you as well. We want to hear those. We all want to learn. We all want to grow together. I want to wrap this video up now. Let me know other topics you want to hear about. I love doing the research, I love learning new information, and I love sharing that with you, and I want your feedback. Feel free to follow me on social media. Send me a friend request on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. I'll probably put my handle names up on the screen. Instagram, it's my first and last name, so it's Tim Almeter. It's Timalmeter. I know my last name's not that common, so I thought I'd spell it for you all. Shoot me a message, tell me what you want to hear. I want to produce content that you guys want me to produce. There's no use in wasting my time thinking about what I think you want to hear versus what you actually want to hear. So let me know, shoot me a message, put it in the comments down below. And that wraps it up. My channel is the Final 10. Don't forget about us. We're the 10% who can't get the cure for CF. And with that, I'm signing out.